right. Good morning, everybody. Very happy to be here. First time of being at the FedTalks. And if we can switch over to the deck, I wanted to start off with a video. I love my day job. This is my day job. I'm Zander. I'm the corporate vice president for the Azure team, and I'm an engineer. I run the engineering team. That's what I do. I'm not in the field. I'm not in marketing, but I do run the engineering team, including making sure that all of those data centers that you saw are up and running 24/7 and 365. So today I want to talk a little bit about what we're doing at Microsoft in the cloud space and in some of the digital transformation inflection points that are there. In particular, digital transformation is super interesting to us, and what I will tell you is we've had to do our own transformation as well. If you think about Microsoft, and I've been at Microsoft for 24 years, a lot of the work that we used to do is you've seen us with box products. You've seen us ship something every 2.5 years. We have our own IT department. We have 100,000 people worldwide. We've had to actually make a lot of transformation ourselves, which I think many of us here are trying to figure out as well. In particular, how do we move from that environment to being able to ship in a very agile environment, being able to ship regularly, not every 2.5 years, but for my team, basically every week. We also had to figure out our roles, our responsibilities, what were the disciplines that people had, how would I do that software, and mix those things together. It's been a huge transformation for us to go back and go figure out, and I do think it's actually very similar. Same thing with our own IT, is trying to figure out how we deploy with SaaS, how we built new infrastructure out there and take advantage of the cloud economics that we're also trying to make real for our customers. So we do look at outcomes from digital transformation and how can we engage citizens, in our case, our employees, make them that much more efficient with their operations and basically transform services in a similar kind of way. Now for us, that basically comes down to this journey to the cloud. In particular, how we work with productivity. You can think, for example, of Office 365 and work that you may have done there. Our business applications, Dynamics 365, those sort of components as well as application innovation, which many of us are taking advantage of. How are we going to do those new modern applications in addition to keeping our existing infrastructure working? Data intelligence is super important for us, and it's a big investment, and it's something I'm actually going to spend the majority of this talk on. And then finally, of course, security management. I thought there were some fantastic sessions this morning, just reminding us again about how critical the job that everybody in this room is doing and how everyone is counting on us to get this right. So that's basically what we call the journey to the cloud. And the Microsoft Cloud is designed to do that. That's Office 365, Dynamics 365, as well as Azure in all the form factors that we have. Now, one of the areas that I want to dig into today for the limited time that we have is to look at what some of the future looks like, because our cloud, of course, has infrastructure. We have platforms as a service. We have SaaS. We have the entire range. And many of you were actually working with, very directly on deployment in government as well. But one of the big trends that we're looking at and have been, frankly, investing in for about 15 years now is democratizing AI. We want to make it for every person in every organization that goes forward. And we've got actually a pretty holistic view of this. And from an AI perspective, we've actually been doing this work for a long time. First, relevance engines in search. You've also seen things like Kinect sensors and those things, most recently the HoloLens. All of these things are actually driven on top of AI investments we've been making for a long time. We start off with our own agent in that environment. We do believe in the future that we will have agents built in for voice assistance. We have Cortana ourselves, and it basically means it knows who you are. It knows what you're doing, it knows your schedule, it knows context about you, it follows you around on your devices, and it's there to help assist you and make sure that you're very productive. We've incorporated this into applications. So if you've used Delve inside of Office 365, that's basically machine learning, helping you figure out how to be more effective and more productive and get insights into your own data. We've most recently built in services, in particular Cortana Intelligence, where we've combined big data and machine learning basically directly into a cloud form factor. After that, we've added cognitive services. And so, for example, being able to recognize text and images and being able to use those in a production kind of way. And everything is built on top of our core infrastructure, some of the pictures that you saw there. Of course, we've got a worldwide fleet with millions of servers, but we've also got GPUs that we've recently introduced with NVIDIA top-of-the-line versions that actually work and help you execute on AI and AI models. And most recently, we've deployed Microsoft design FPGA silicon into our fleet, which allows us to basically do the inference work with AI on a massive scale. In fact, we've demonstrated being able to translate the Library of Congress in just seconds from one language into another. So it's really impressive how all of this environment is going to help us moving forward. One of the places that we've embedded all of this intelligence, not just inside of Office and some of the applications that I mentioned, but also inside of our Internet of Things that we've done. And we believe that things like remote monitoring, in addition to being able to do predictive analytics, is a super important thing. I use it to run my own fleet, actually. We'll ingest petabytes worth of log data every single day, just for the core basis. Run machine learning over it and try and figure out what's going on. Many of you are responsible for very large fleets of different types and other sort of critical infrastructure that we have. In fact, one of the things that we've done with this work with a partner is actually trying to figure out how to work with smart cities and be able to look at critical infrastructure like utility lines. Here we can see basically environments where I really need to make sure that this environment is safe, that I know that everything is up and running. You know, we have citizens that depend upon that. In particular, we've actually partnered with a company, eSmart. They actually make an autonomous drone that is able to fly out of line of sight and actually uses AI in order to be able to do very interesting maintenance and predictive work that has to happen. In fact, if we look at this, basically I can start to actually fly a drone like this over infrastructure power lines in the future. I can have techs that are basically responsible for running that through, and this really can start looking at, well, how exactly are my lines set up? Do I have any maintenance issues? Do I have any kind of problems that I need to get after? In particular, this sort of approach now replaces either a super expensive flyover with a helicopter, literally a flyover, which can be dangerous, or literally sending people out in the field to be able to do manual inspections, which is kind of error-prone and labor-intensive. So this kind of combination is very cool. When you combine this together, this drone is basically streaming the images that it sees as it goes over real time into the cloud, leveraging GPUs and some of the intelligence, kind of cognitive solutions that I mentioned, to be able to do this pattern matching. You can see here being able to find the elements of the power structure that's there and separating it out from the background and the other components. Now I can actually look at it and say, I know what it's supposed to look like. Let's sanity check and make sure that it actually matches what it's supposed to be. And if not, let's get someone out there so we can avoid having any interruptions in service, but then also, again, really looking at the safety factor that can come when we want to make sure that things are well maintained. So this is a great example of taking AI and all of that cloud infrastructure and the local part for the drone and being able to combine it together in really new, interesting, and exciting ways. Now, that's not the only examples that we've done. We have a partnership with Rolls-Royce, and in fact, this is a 6-ton, 2-story tall turbine that you'll see flying under every A350 that's out there going forward. And what Rolls-Royce and we have done together is be able to collect data off of these environments. They generate a ton of data on every single flight. And what we've been able to do is work with them to do not only the monitoring, but also the predictive analytics piece. You can see on the monitor to the side of the turbine, the ability to go in and drill down on components and understand, is everything on track? And if I need to replace a part, can I figure out how to schedule that in a way that it doesn't cause a logistics interruption? So we don't have to actually cause any of us waiting in an airport lobby having to wait around. We think that this kind of technology is super cool, but we also did some work with deep machine learning on top of it. In particular, we took all of that data with one of the partner airlines of Rolls-Royce and poured over it, and we found a way to save about 15% on fuel, which was super interesting. Just by changing the taxi procedures and takeoff, we're able to knock 15% off. Now, it's same flights, same equipment, no real differences there, just the pilot. Maybe some of those pilots used to work for some of you. I don't know. If they're heavy on the stick, I don't know. But you wind up with a lot of extra fuel consumption. When you think about that, 40% of the cost of running an airline is fuel. So the opportunity to go in and save 15% is actually substantial. It's pretty material. So these are just a few examples that we think you're going to be able to do that. There's other examples as well. For example, HoloLens, augmented reality, and all those things require AI, whether it's on your face or it's up in the cloud. We basically are investing in all these things, and we believe that they'll get integrated across, again, the applications, the user interaction, et cetera. Now, if I take a look and look at our cloud, the way we frame out cloud is to think about this kind of global footprint, like you saw in the video, but also trust, which is super important, security management, and we heard a lot of good talk about that this morning. And finally, hybrid, which has been a first-class part of our strategy, basically from the start. We think it's critical. Just to give you a little bit of information on that, we have today 38 regions worldwide. So when you saw those videos and some of those components that were those were some of these circles that are there, they're massive. Many of these things are actually about the size of 16 football fields put together, where we can store hundreds of thousands of servers in a particular location. That's part of this hyperscale cloud that we want to make available. Bring it back a little bit closer to home for us in this room. What we've done for Azure Government, we have 4 regions that are out there today. In fact, we have 2 that are for state, federal, and local, but then we also have 2 that are designed specifically for DoD. In fact, those are isolated instances for the DoD, and we're on track for DISA L5 support for those. So that basically means if you're using those, it's only for the DoD, and they're physically isolated versus a virtual isolation. So it gives us 4 regions. And earlier this morning, we actually announced 2 more that are coming for our GovCloud, both out in Texas as well as in Arizona. So that brings us up to 6 regions, and we've tried to design it in such a way that they're all 500 miles apart from each other for disaster recovery purposes. So you don't have to worry about just being in one region, maybe zones, but one region, but the ability to actually do the DR components for those as well. So that puts us on the east, the south, the west, and the Midwest as well for that functionality. Now, we also think that hybrid is a key part of being able to do this digital transformation, and it's something that, frankly, probably comes from some of our background of having been an enterprise company for a long time. And what we've tried to do is make sure we can build it into the product so we have product truth for that. So, of course, we want the backup, recovery, those sort of things as well. But we've also done things like build security as well as the software directly to support it. I think SQL Server is a great example for me. Our table structure functionality can actually span one table across your private cloud and your public cloud automatically. I don't have to do anything different. So we think that hybrid, it's here to stay. We think that, of course, we're going to have public cloud. We're invested very heavily. Hopefully you saw that. But at the same time, we want to make sure that these hybrid scenarios are really covered. In particular, we've invested deeply in Azure Stack. That's a version that we have of the Azure Cloud, my software that runs in the public cloud, that we can also run on converged hardware, partnering with companies like HPE and Dell in particular. We think it's going to help with some of the isolated scenarios you have. I've got boats above water, I've got boats that go underwater. We've got things like factory floors and last mile sort of things like that. Those are cases where we feel like you want to have cloud functionality, but you need to be able to put it where you're working, but you still want the ability to take advantage of the agility and the other sort of software and services that you can make available as well. So I started off basically talking about digital transformation and talking about what we've done at Microsoft, frankly, for that as well. And I think that our mission at Microsoft that we stated is to help every person and every organization be able to achieve more. And that's something we want to be able to accomplish. I think that in that case, we use the cloud as a substrate for making that happen. But what we want to do is enable all this extra power on top of that. So you can use the data, you can use the compute, and all these things to implement all these brand new things that we want to go realize. And pretty much we figure that software is going to be a critical part of everybody's mission going forward, if it isn't already, because it is a huge enabler. And so I think our goal here is to really make sure that we're giving you everything you can in order to be successful with your mission. As some of the speakers, I thought, very eloquently this morning put it, we're all counting on you because you really are implementing what we need to run as a government and as citizens. And it's just fantastic the work that you're doing. We'd love to be able to help with that, but we're super counting on making sure that you are able to pull off that mission, and we're excited to be part of that. Thank you very much.